There was a woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. 12 years of doctors, 12 years of money spent, 12 years of being told, there's nothing more we can do. And on the day she finally got her breakthrough, she didn't get it in a quiet moment of prayer in her room. She got it in a crowd, a moving, pressing, shoving crowd, where she had to fight through bodies just to touch the edge of a robe. She didn't have the luxury of someday. She had one moment, and she moved. That's what I want to talk to you about today, because most of us have been taught to think of faith as something calm, something we build slowly over years in quiet devotion, and there's truth in that. But there is another kind of faith the Bible talks about, a sudden, given, urgent kind of faith. And there are 4 areas of your life where you need it right now, today, not eventually. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly where you need this gift and why waiting on it could cost you the very breakthrough you're praying for. What is the gift of faith? Before we get into the 4 areas, we need to get one thing straight, because I see this confused all the time. In 1 Corinthians 12, 8-9, Paul lists the gifts of the Spirit, word of wisdom, word of knowledge, and then he says, to another faith by the same Spirit. That word faith, there is not describing the faith that saves you. Every believer already has that. This is describing something else, a specific, situational impartation of supernatural confidence that rises up in a believer for a specific moment. Think about it like this. Saving faith is the door you walk through once. The gift of faith is more like a sudden wind at your back on a particular day for a particular need that you didn't manufacture yourself. It was given. You'll recognize it because it doesn't feel like willpower. It doesn't feel like gritting your teeth and trying to convince yourself. It feels like a settled, almost strange certainty that rises up from somewhere outside your normal reasoning. Elijah had it on Mount Carmel when he rebuilt an altar that had been torn down, drenched it in water, and called fire from heaven in front of enemies who wanted him dead. That wasn't Elijah's everyday personality. That was a gift given for a moment. And here's the part that matters most for today's video. This gift almost always shows up in the middle of urgency, not in seasons of ease, which is exactly why waiting to respond to it is so dangerous. Let's look at the 4 places you're most likely to need it. Number 1, finances. The first area is your finances, but specifically, the kind of provision that still requires you to act. Turn with me to 2 Kings chapter 4. A widow comes to Elisha in a panic. Her husband has died, and his creditor is coming to take her 2 sons as slaves to pay the debt. This is not a small problem. This is her family being torn apart in days, not years. Elisha asks her one question. What do you have in your house? And she says, nothing, except a small jar of oil. Here's what I want you to notice. God didn't drop a bag of money on her doorstep. He told her to act on what little she had immediately, with faith. Go borrow empty vessels, not a few, he says, as many as you can. Shut the door. Start pouring. She had to move on an instruction that made no natural sense. Borrowing jars for oil she didn't have yet? That's faith acting before the evidence shows up. And the oil didn't stop flowing until the vessel stopped coming. The size of her provision was tied directly to the size of her faith-fueled action. This is why the gift of faith for your finances is urgent, not leisurely. If she had said, let me think about this for a few weeks, the moment would have passed. The creditor was already at the door. Financial breakthroughs in Scripture rarely wait for your convenience. The widow's need was immediate. Her obedience had to be immediate too. If you're believing God for provision right now, for a bill, a business, a shift in your income, ask yourself, is there something in front of you right now that requires action, not just prayer? The oil doesn't fill jars that were never borrowed. Number 2, health. The second area is your health, the healing and restoration of your physical body. Let's go back to that woman we opened with. Mark chapter 5. 12 years of bleeding. Everything she owned, spent on physicians who made her worse, not better. By any human measure, she had every reason to give up. But she hears about Jesus passing through, and she makes a decision in a split second. If I only touch his garment, I will be made well. Not, if I fast for 40 days. Not, if I wait for the right season. If I touch his garment. Right now. In this crowd. Today. And she had to push. Mark tells us there was a great crowd thronging him, pressing on him from every side. She wasn't the only person who wanted access to Jesus that day. Her faith had a window, and that window was closing with every step he took further down the road. She reaches out, touches the hem of his robe, and immediately, the text says immediately, the flow of blood stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that disease. Here's the urgency lesson for your health. Healing faith is rarely convenient faith. It shows up in crowded, chaotic, pressing moments, a diagnosis, a scan, a symptom that won't go away. And it asks you to move now, not when circumstances calm down. If she had waited for the crowd to clear, Jesus would have already passed by. If you are believing God for healing in your body right now, don't wait for a quiet, perfect moment to exercise your faith. The crowd around you, the fear, the diagnosis, the noise of everyone else's opinions, is exactly where this gift operates. Reach out now. Number 3, supernatural provision. The third area is different from finances. This is provision that has no natural explanation at all. Not money you worked for, not resources you already had. Provision that falls from nowhere. Look at 1 Kings chapter 17. There's a famine in the land. God tells the prophet Elijah to go to the brook Cherith, and he says, I have commanded the ravens to feed you there. Ravens, scavenger birds, not exactly known for generosity. And yet morning and evening, they bring him bread and meat. Then the brook dries up, because even supernatural provision has seasons, and God sends him to a widow in Zarephath, a woman who is, by her own words, gathering 2 sticks so she can make one final meal for herself and her son before they die of starvation. And Elijah asks her to feed him first, with the little she has left, and promises that the jar of flour will not run out, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the famine ends. She had absolutely nothing to go on except a word, no collateral, no guarantee she could see, just an instruction that demanded she act before the evidence appeared. This is what separates supernatural provision from ordinary financial faith. There's no natural pathway to follow, no plan you can build, no steps to save your way there. All you have is a word, and the urgency is that the word has to be acted on in the moment it's given, or it does you no good sitting on a shelf. The widow's flour didn't run out for the rest of the famine, but it never would have started flowing if she'd waited another day. Number 4, unfavorable circumstances. The fourth area covers everything else: relationships, timing, legal situations, impossible doors that seem shut by people or circumstances, not by your body or your bank account. Think about Esther. She's a Jewish woman in a Persian palace, and a decree has gone out that will lead to the extermination of her entire people. She has one option: approach the king uninvited, which by law could get her killed on the spot, unless he extends his scepter toward her. Her uncle Mordecai says something to her that should sit heavy on all of us. Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Not such a life, such a time. There was a window. Esther could have reasoned her way into waiting, building a better relationship with the king first, finding a safer approach, letting more time pass. Instead, she fasts for 3 days and then goes in. That's the pattern with unfavorable circumstances. The door doesn't stay open forever. Daniel in the lion's den didn't get to choose his moment. The decree was already signed. The Israelites at the Red Sea didn't get a calm afternoon to plan their crossing. Pharaoh's army was already visible behind them. Circumstantial faith is almost always exercised with your back against a wall, not in a comfortable planning session. If you are staring at a circumstance right now that looks completely closed, a relationship, a legal situation, a door that everyone around you says is shut, recognize that the gift of faith for circumstances rarely arrives early. It arrives right before the deadline, and it asks you to walk toward the danger, not away from it. Why do you need to act urgently? Now step back and look at all four of these together, because there's a pattern you cannot miss. The widow's creditor was already at the door, the crowd was already pressing in, and Jesus was already walking on. The brook was already drying up, the scepter was only extended for the length of one audience with the king. In every single case, the gift of faith showed up inside a closing window, not before it, and not after it. This tells us something important about how this gift operates. It is not primarily given so you can sit and meditate on it for a season. It's given so you can act in a moment that will not repeat itself. Hebrews 3:15 puts it this way: "Today, if you will hear his voice, do not harden your hearts." Not tomorrow. Today. This is why so many believers say they feel like they missed something. A nudge, a prompting, a strange confidence that came over them and then faded. That fading isn't necessarily the gift being withdrawn. Sometimes it's the window closing because the action never came. How do you recognize and act on this gift? So practically, how do you recognize when this gift is being given to you in one of these four areas? And how do you respond before the window closes? First, notice the shift in your certainty. This gift doesn't usually feel like manufactured hype. It feels like a settled boldness that's disproportionate to your natural circumstances. The widow speaking to a prophet with confidence she had no reason to have. The woman in the crowd suddenly certain that a touch would be enough. Second, look for the instruction attached to it. In every one of these stories, faith was paired with an action. Borrow the jars, reach out your hand, feed the prophet first, go to the king. The gift of faith is rarely given just to be felt. It's given to be obeyed. Third, move while the door is still open. Ask yourself honestly, is there a today quality to what I'm sensing? Is this need, financial, physical, provisional, circumstantial, one where delay could genuinely cost me the outcome? If the answer is yes, that urgency itself may be part of the gift, not a distraction from it. And fourth, don't confuse the gift of faith with reckless presumption. Esther fasted first. The widow already had a relationship with Elisha. This gift builds on a life already oriented toward God. It isn't a substitute for one. So here's where I want to leave you. Look honestly at your life right now. Is there a financial pressure that needs a step of obedient action, not just more prayer? Is there a health situation where you've been waiting for a calmer moment instead of reaching out now? Is there a need in your life with absolutely no natural explanation available, where all you have is a word from God that you haven't acted on yet? Is there a circumstance, a relationship, a legal matter, a closed door, where you've been waiting for permission that may never come, because the window is now, not later? The widow moved. The woman in the crowd moved. Elijah moved. Esther moved. Every single one of them acted inside a moment that was never going to repeat itself. If something has been rising up in you lately, a strange boldness, a settled certainty, a nudge toward action in one of these four areas, don't file it away for later. That may be the gift of faith, given for such a time as this. If this helped you see your situation more clearly, let me know in the comments which of these four areas you're believing God for right now. I read every single one. And if you want more teaching like this, subscribe to Bible Unwithered, because next week we're going deeper into how to discern the voice of God from your own emotions. I'll see you there.